For the ColorMe portrait assignment, take one of the photos that you've taken outside. You can use one of your portraits, or you can use something that you shoot today. I've downloaded both of these just as examples. Notice the cropping is much different here than it is here. In both of them, the top of the head is cropped off. I'm just going to use this one as an example. The first thing you're going to do is save the file. File, save as. We're going to simply call this ColorMe _a student. Remember to put your first initial and last name. Every time you see a student, that's where you put your first initial and last name. _p, and I'm putting a hashtag, but right there you're going to put period 1, period 2, period 3, period 4, period 5, period 6, or period 7, depending on what period you have me. I've already created a folder on my desktop called ColorMe Portrait where I'm saving this. Save the format as Photoshop. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new layer. Remember that when you put your cursor over one of the menu items in any of the palettes, it will tell you what it is. So I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to double click this layer and just call it black. Then I'm going to click here, create another layer, and call this one color. It's a good idea to always save your work often, just in case there's a blackout or something. Most computers these days save things automatically, but it's always a good idea. So since we've already saved this, I'm simply going to hold the Command key down and tap the letter S. It's a good idea to do that often. Sometimes when I'm in a tight deadline, I save my work about every 10 or 15 minutes, depending on how intense the work is. So in the color layer, just so that I can see the details that I want to outline, I'm going to change this to white. Click OK. All I did was change the palette color to white. So when I hold the Option key down, I'm going to tap the Delete key on my keyboard, and it's going to cover the whole surface of that white. Then I'm going to go up here to Fill and drag this down just a little bit to maybe 60% or 50%. You can play around with that. Then I'm going to go to my top layer, which is currently called black. This is the one time when you're going to want to use a different brush for one of these initial assignments. We've been using this brush on the eraser tool, but I'm going to select this second one. And then I'm going to take the brush size down to really small. You can either size the brush down like this. This is currently now set to 4 pixels. Or remember, if you tap the bracket tool, or the bracket key on your keyboard, which is right next to the letter P, it will make your brush larger or smaller. So that I can see the details in here, I'm going to hold the Command key down and tap the plus to increase the size of the view. Then I'm going to move the picture around a little bit by holding the space bar down, which will turn into the hand, and it's going to change the view. Remember, it's not moving the picture, it's just changing the view. I'm going to switch these two so that black is in front, and then I'm simply going to start drawing lines. Oops, except that I have the eraser tool selected. Make sure to select the correct tool. In this case, it's the brush tool. I had the eraser selected a moment ago, so I'm going to set this again to 4 pixels. Hard brush. And then I'm going to start drawing. take your time on this part of this. Add as many details as you think are necessary. If you want to do rough eyebrows, you can do rough eyebrows. We can change all of that later when we start coloring things. I'm just holding the space bar and the command key down to zoom in, and again holding the space bar down to move the view around. And I'm just going to go over this pretty quickly just to get some of the basics so that I can show you the entire thing. Command 0. I'm going to very quickly do his face. Just so that I can show you how to do the coloring portion. Try and get as much of the detail as you can when you do this. If you think of it as a cartoon, it will make a lot more sense once we start coloring it. And again, I'm just doing a pretty cursory outline here, and I'm doing it very quickly. You can make this as rough or as smooth as you want. But please try and take care with this. This is your final project for this semester, for this school year. And you should have about 2 weeks to finish this, assuming that you've gotten caught up on the rest of your work. Do not start this one before you've finished the last 2 or 3 assignments, because those are just as important. So all I'm doing is I'm using the space bar to move everything around so that I can get the details. If you think there are details you want to see, like this area back here, I mean, I can see a pretty rough line here. But if you want to see more of it, just click on the color layer and change the fill to that. You can change the opacity, and then make sure to click back on the top layer, the black layer. Again, this is a very quick example. I want you to take more time on it than I have, but just block in the basics. Facial features, parts of clothing, the wrinkles in his clothes or in his jacket, if there's any sort of patterns. And you're just looking to get the main features. So I'm going to turn off the color layer in the background now, and then bump up this fill. And I notice there's no teeth in here. So I'm going to take this down again, turn this layer back on, and then go in and add the teeth. When you're moving stuff around, and this is where you're going to have to pay close attention. When you're drawing, make sure that you're on the black layer. If you need a smaller brush, tap the left bracket next to the letter P on the keyboard and get a smaller brush for details. Keeping in mind that these details are going to be painted depending on what's behind it. And we're not going to worry so much about if it's accurate or not. What I mean by that is, put as much detail into it as you want, but we're not going to be overly concerned with the color, because as you've seen from the examples, the color is pretty bold. So I've done the details with the smaller brush, And then I've gone back over the outline with the thick brush again. The two different pixel sizes were 4 pixels and 2 pixels. And you can see it change up here. When I tap the left bracket, it changes the number here. You probably don't want to go too much farther than 2 pixels depending on how big your screen is or how big your file is. Don't worry about the details in the background, although I do want to do the rest of his hair over here. And again, this is very rough. I noticed that I missed his hairline here. So I'm going to use the eraser and delete this. You can continue to make changes as you go to the black layer. Now I want to see what my drawing looks like, so I'm going to bump up the fill all the way to white again. And I'm actually satisfied with this the way it is right now. Might want to add some other details, like where his tongue is. So again, this time I just turned the color layer off. I'm going to relabel this white back. That's the background. And add another layer and call that one color. That way I can preserve the photo and still be able to see the details if I want to add more details later. So now I'm just going to go in and start coloring. There's multiple ways to color things. I'm going to click on the white layer and turn it on. When I color now, on the color layer, I'm just going to choose some random colors. And then I'm going to go in and start coloring things. Again, I accidentally had the eraser selected, so I need to select the brush, color layer, increase the size of the brush, and I can be fairly sloppy here if I need to be, because I can clean it up later. Because we're painting on the layers, you can see the black lines in front because it's on a completely different layer, so I don't have to ever worry about messing up the black lines, the original black lines. To clean this up, I'm going to zoom in, Command plus, hold the space bar down to move the hand over, click the eraser, and then clean up right up to the edge of the line. So go through and add color. If you go over the line, don't worry about it. You can always go back and erase it. You can make the color choices as outlandish as you want. Try and see if you can match the color choices with the mood of the picture. So for instance, this is a very happy picture. He's got a very good smile on his face. So I might want to do bright colors on this one. I'm on the color palette. Let me show you another way to color. This time I'm going to use the lasso tool. I'm going to zoom into his eyebrow, and I'm going to select this area by using the lasso tool. Making sure that I'm on the color layer. Change the color. Now, when you use the lasso tool and you have a color selected and you're on the color layer, all I have to do is hold the Option key down and tap the Delete key on the keyboard, and it will fill it with that color. I'm going to do the same thing over here. As soon as I start drawing with the lasso, notice that the other eyebrow has been deselected. Notice how I missed a part in here? When I do Option Delete, it missed this part in here. So then I'm just going to continue on. Since I did his eyebrows green, I'm going to do his mustache green too. Option Delete, Command 0, make his eyes another color. Since I've already got this one selected, I'm going to hold the Shift key down to select both of them at the same time. As long as the Shift key is down, it will allow me to select different areas of the screen. Choose another color. Make it as light or as dark as you want. Option Delete, Command 0. Now if I want to leave all of these colors alone, because I've already gotten them the way I like them, but I want to color the entire face, I can go down here to the white background, add another layer, call this one Face, and then I can go in either with the paintbrush or the lasso tool and color all of his face and his neck. I'm not being super careful right here, just to make a point. So all of this area is selected. I'm on the layer called Face. I'm going to choose another color. Let's make it this really vibrant color here. And again, Option Delete. When you have these dotted lines, that means you've selected something with the lasso tool or with the marquee tool. The marquee tool does the same thing. So if I want to fill other colors in the background, I can just select with the marquee tool and play around with patterns in the background. I can also use the marquee tool to delete things from that layer. We're primarily focused on the character here. So you can see down here where I missed. I'm going to use the eraser tool here. If you try to start erasing and it doesn't erase, there may be something selected on the screen. So for instance, here's what happened when I was trying to erase just now. I had something selected like this. You cannot paint anywhere outside of this area when there's something selected. So if I take the paintbrush now that I have an area selected and I try to paint, it's not going to paint except where this is. So when I was trying to erase down here, it's the same thing. If I try to erase stuff here, can't do it. It will only erase inside the area that's selected. In order to get rid of this, there's a couple of ways. You can either click the marquee tool or the lasso tool and just click somewhere on the screen, or you can hold the command key down and tap the letter D for deselect. So I'm going to fill in some of these areas with the paintbrush instead of the lasso tool. And I've just zoomed in, and now I'm going back through and correcting. Now notice this. This will save you a lot of time. I know I'm giving you a lot of information, but this will save you a lot of time. You know that I'm a big fan of keyboard shortcuts. The brush tool, when you roll over it, notice that menu that pops up. The letter B gives me the brush tool. The letter E gives me the eraser tool. So if I'm going back and forth painting and erasing, I can tap the letter E, make my brush smaller, and erase this area here. If I make a mistake, I can tap the letter B and paint back over it. Spacebar moves the picture around moves the view around. And I'm just tapping the letter E and then tapping the letter B to paint. Have a lot of fun with this, please. This is the last assignment. It is not currently an extra credit assignment, but depending on how far everyone else gets with the other assignments, the students who have completed everything may get this one as an extra credit. But for the time being, this is our final project. Starting today, you have about 7 or 8 hours to finish this and all the other work that you've done so far this semester. So again, have some fun with this. Remember though that when you're painting, and this is something that's very important, pay close attention to what I'm about to say. Make sure when you're painting or erasing that you're painting on the correct layer. This color layer and this face layer, even though they're both colors, are two different layers. The nice thing about that is, with his eyebrows here, if I'm on this layer, I can't paint the eyebrow. If I accidentally click here, I am painting the eyebrow now. So pay close attention if you're going to use multiple layers like this. Since his mouth is a different color, this time I'm going to click on the color layer. I'm going to choose a different color, slightly darker, and then I'm going to paint in here. Since I want the teeth a different color than the mouth, and also the different color than the skin, I'm going to erase this to clean it up. I'm going to erase these. And here's the nice thing about using layers. One of the nice things about using layers. While you're painting, while you're coloring, let's make his teeth light green. Nope, let's make him light yellow. Paint completely covers the layer underneath. I'm not sure why this is not working, so I'll have to play around with that. Oh, I know why. It's not working because I forgot which tool I had. I need to have the brush tool selected. Again, I'm not super concerned that I'm missing some of these places down here, because when I'm painting, I can always go back and erase. Where it gets tricky is in here, because I've painted right over the mouth. In order to select this color, I want this color to cover this in here. I'm going to hold the Option key down while I have the brush selected, and it's going to change into a little eyedropper. Watch what happens down here when I click on this color. It changes it, it picks up that color. I've reduced the brush size, and now I can go back in here and color this, and then get all the little details in here. Eyedropper tool, Option, click, work on the details. Something I haven't done in a really long time, Command 0, Command S to save, because I don't want to lose my work. After that, it's just cleanup, adding color. Try and make this as fun as you can. This is our last assignment of the school year, so try to have a good time with it. I'm going to show you how to save it in another video, because there's several files that need to be reduced when they're saved. But for the time being, just save this and then upload it to your Google Drive while you're working on it, and then when you're finished with it, upload it to your Google Classroom.